He looked like just another customer, until the cashier froze mid-sentence when she saw the mark on his arm. He looked like just another customer, until the cashier froze mid-sentence when she saw the mark on his arm. It was a Tuesday morning, the kind of morning where the cafe smelled of ground beans and burnt toast, where the windows still carried streaks of rain from the night before, and where everyone who walked in had only one thing on their mind: caffeine. Nothing more, nothing less. The man who entered didn't stand out at first. He was in his late 60s, maybe older, though his posture made it hard to guess. His jacket was plain, brown and worn at the elbows. His shoes were polished but old, leather creased from decades of steps. He carried nothing but a wallet tucked in his hand, and he spoke no words as he joined the line. The customers ahead were loud with chatter, college students laughing too loud, a businessman complaining into his phone, a young mother balancing a stroller while ordering. He didn't seem to mind the noise. He just waited, calm, almost detached. When his turn came, he stepped forward and gave his order. "Black coffee," he said simply. "No sugar, no milk." His voice was soft, steady, the kind that didn't ask for attention but carried weight all the same. The cashier smiled politely, tapping the order into the register. She was new, maybe 20 at most, her hair tied back hastily, her hands moving with the nervous energy of someone not yet used to the rush. She asked, "Name for the order." The man hesitated, then shook his head. "Doesn't matter," he replied. She looked up, confused, then shrugged lightly. She reached out her hand for the cash. That was when it happened. As he extended his arm to hand her a folded bill, the sleeve of his jacket slid back just enough. For a moment, only a second, the faded ink on his forearm caught the fluorescent cafe light. Not the colorful tattoos most people wore proudly today. This one was different. 2 digits, a symbol, old, weathered. The cashier froze, her words caught in her throat. Her smile disappeared. She stared at the mark as though it belonged to another world, another lifetime. The line behind him shifted impatiently. Someone cleared their throat, but the cashier wasn't listening. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no sound came. She only whispered, "Is that real?" The man said nothing. He slid the bill across the counter, calm as ever. His eyes didn't flicker. For him, this wasn't the first time someone had noticed. The cafe was suddenly quieter. The story could have ended there. An old tattoo, a curious glance, nothing more. But the silence spread. It moved through the cafe like a chill in the air, pulling eyes toward the old man. One by one, customers noticed the cashier's expression, then followed her gaze. Some leaned forward, squinting. Others whispered. The businessman on his phone lowered his voice, suddenly unsure. The old man finally pulled his sleeve down, covering the mark. "Just coffee," he repeated quietly. But the girl couldn't look away. The camera would linger on the mark just long enough, not enough to explain it, but enough to spark a question. What kind of tattoo makes a cashier stop breathing? His name, at least the one he gave, was Elias. He didn't come here often, just once or twice a month, always alone, always at the same hour. He sat in the farthest corner, facing the door, never the window. Today, though, the cafe would not forget him. The girl tried to hand him his change, but her hand trembled. Where did you serve?" she whispered before she could stop herself. Her co-worker, a boy steaming milk beside her, shot her a look, half curiosity, half warning. Customers didn't like personal questions, but Elias only tilted his head. His eyes were pale blue, not clouded with age but sharpened by something else. Memory, maybe. "Long ago," he said. The words hung in the air, heavy, final. The girl swallowed. "Was it?" she started, but Elias's gaze cut her sentence short. Not unkind, not harsh, just final. She pressed her lips together and slid the coffee across the counter. He took it without another word. At a nearby table, a student whispered to her friend, "Did you see it? That was military. Old school. My grandpa had something like that." The businessman who had been on his phone leaned closer, curiosity overtaking his irritation. Even the mother with the stroller shifted uneasily, as if realizing the stranger among them wasn't so ordinary after all. That's the thing about silence. It spreads faster than laughter, deeper than words. One mark on an arm had turned a noisy cafe into a room of unspoken questions. Elias sat at his corner table, sipping the coffee slowly, as though he had nowhere to be. But in his mind, he wasn't in that cafe. The hiss of the espresso machine became the hiss of static over a radio. The clink of mugs became the metallic snap of a rifle bolt. The chatter of customers melted into the shouts of men long gone. He blinked once, shook it off. He didn't come here for memory. He came here for coffee. And yet, the mark never let him be. The young cashier couldn't stop glancing at him. She tried to serve the next customers, but her eyes kept flicking back. Who was he? Why did that ink unsettle her so deeply? Finally, on her break, she whispered to her coworker, "That mark, it's not just a tattoo. I saw it in a book once, in a history class." Her coworker frowned. "It's just ink." "No," she said, shaking her head. "It was a unit designation, but not a public one. Something about operations that weren't supposed to exist." Her coworker laughed nervously. "You watch too many movies." But she wasn't convinced. And an older man at the back, gray-haired and quiet, had been watching too. When Elias stood to leave, the man rose from his seat. Their eyes met, just for a moment, and in that glance, there was recognition. Not the recognition of friends, but of survivors. The older man nodded once. Elias returned it almost imperceptibly, then left the cafe. The girl never got his name that day, just a mark on an arm and a silence that weighed more than words, but she would see him again. And the next time, she wouldn't be the only one watching. Narrator, he looked like just another customer, until the mark on his arm turned a crowded cafe into a silent room of questions. That day should have ended with nothing more than a black coffee, but silence has a way of following a man like him. And for Elias, silence was never empty. It was full of memories, scars, and truths too heavy for words. 2 weeks later, he returned. Same jacket, same posture, same quiet steps across the cafe floor. But this time, the young cashier was waiting for him, her heart pounding faster than she wanted to admit. She hadn't forgotten the ink. She hadn't forgotten the way her voice failed when she saw it. He ordered the same thing, black, no sugar. His tone was steady, unshaken, as if the world around him had not noticed, had not whispered, but she had, and she couldn't let it go. When he handed her the money, she didn't just take it. She leaned closer, almost whispering, "That mark on your arm, I looked it up. I couldn't find it in any ordinary place." For the first time, his eyes flicked toward hers. They weren't angry. They weren't even cautious. Just tired. "Some things," he said softly, "aren't meant to be found in books." Instead of change, he pulled something else from his pocket. A coin, heavy and worn, its surface engraved with the same symbol. He set it on the counter gently, almost reverently. The cashier's breath caught. Her coworker leaned over. A couple of customers shifted forward, curious. "What is this?" she asked. He didn't answer. He picked up his coffee and moved to his corner seat. The coin stayed behind. Whispers spread. A student pulled out his phone to search. A businessman squinted at it, muttering something about secret units. Even the mother with the stroller stopped rocking her baby, her eyes drawn to the symbol she didn't understand but somehow felt mattered. In the back corner, the older man who had been there the first time rose slowly. He approached the counter, his hands trembling as he reached for the coin. "May I?" he asked the cashier. She nodded, placing it in his palm. His fingers closed around it like it was made of glass. His eyes welled with something the others couldn't name. Grief, respect, memory. "I haven't seen one of these since," he paused, swallowing hard. "Since the jungle." The cafe fell silent. His gaze drifted toward Elias. Their eyes met, and in that glance the truth passed between them. Recognition. Survivors didn't need words. The cashier whispered, "So it's real?" The old man nodded. "More real than you'll ever want to believe." Conversation stopped. The espresso machine hissed, but no one moved. The students set down their phones. Even the businessman closed his laptop, staring. For the first time, Elias spoke across the room. His voice was calm, quiet, yet it carried weight. "Some marks you don't choose, they're given, and you spend the rest of your life carrying them." You spend the rest of your life carrying them. In another life, decades earlier, there had been no cafe, no rain-soaked windows or gentle music, only the dense silence of a jungle night, radios crackling faintly, boots sinking into mud, names whispered once and never again. That's where the mark had been earned, not drawn by ink, but burned into memory, into identity, the kind of symbol no one outside the unit would ever understand. and so Elias carried it, not for pride, not for show, but because some truths could never be erased. Rinderly Gico. Rage for more vinked betont 3 falls more. Shazliti Wolik quieter Gito prosend. The cashier stood frozen. The coin glimmered in her hand. She wanted to ask 1,000 questions, but the look on Elias's face stopped her. His eyes weren't warning her. They were telling her the truth. If you open this door, you won't be able to close it. So she said nothing. She only nodded, but another customer couldn't stay silent. A younger man in line, a college student with restless energy, spoke up. So what? You expect us to believe he's some kind of ghost soldier? Anyone can get a tattoo. Anyone can buy a coin online. The older man snapped his head toward him. His voice, though cracked with age, carried sharpness. That's not a coin you can buy. And that ink, you don't pay for that in a shop. You pay for it with years of silence. The student laughed nervously. Sounds like a story. Elias finally turned his gaze on him. Calm, unshaken. Stories are told, he said. Legacies are carried. The student had no reply. Labenfor shifted. Customers weren't just curious anymore. They were reverent. Something in the air had changed, the way a room feels before a storm. The cashier placed the coin back on the counter, sliding it toward Elias. This belongs to you. But he pushed it back gently. No, it belongs to anyone willing to remember. Her hands shook as she closed her fingers around it. Elias finished his coffee slowly, as if savoring each sip. He stood, tucked his chair in neatly, and looked around the cafe one final time. No one spoke. They only watched as he moved toward the door, his boots soft against the tile. He paused for a moment, turning back toward the cashier. "Thank you," she whispered. He gave a single nod, nothing more. Then he stepped into the rain. He looked like just another customer, until the mark on his arm reminded everyone that history isn't always written in books. Some stories aren't shouted, they're carried, quietly, patiently, waiting for someone to notice. So the next time you see an old man at a counter, rolling up his sleeve for nothing more than a cup of coffee, pay attention, because some legacies live not in medals or headlines, but in silence. And silence, once broken, can echo louder than any story ever told.